All right, what's going on today, YouTube? Welcome back to your favorite cyclist YouTube channel and this week's Bike Quick Talks. But before we get into today's video, if you're new to my channel, make sure you head down below, hit that subscribe button for me. If you already are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell icon right next to that. That way you get notified every time I upload. That way you don't miss any of this awesome cycling content on this channel. So like I said, in today's Bike Quick Talks, we're talking about handlebars and what you need to know when you're looking for a set of handlebars. And we're going to go over all sorts of measurements. First, we're going to talk about flat bars or a mountain bike set of bars. And then we're going to go on to say drop bars. That way you understand exactly what you're looking for when you're going to get a new set of bars. So first off, we're going to talk about your flat bars here. So flat bars. First thing you're going to know is your clamp diameter. So that's going to be the size you have on your stem. Pretty much what the stem is clamping to on the bars. So there's going to be three main sizes. It's going to be a 25.4 millimeters, a 31.8 millimeters, and a 35 millimeter stem. So 25.4 is going to be kind of your older style. You're still going to find it some on your budget bikes, but that's going to be an older clamp diameter. It is something you should be aware of because, like I said, they're still out there today. Now, 31.8 millimeter, that's going to be fairly common. You'll see pretty close anywhere. Drop bars, flat bars, they're all going to have 31.8s. Those were the initial oversized bar clamp diameter. So 31.8 millimeters, I would say out of everything, that's going to be the most common one you will see. And then there's 35 millimeters. 35 millimeters offers more stiffness, and that's what we have right here. It's going to be what you're going to see on some higher end mountain bikes. Something that stiffness is really going to matter, and it's really something that's in the flat bar range is where you're going to see that the most. And finding out what diameter you have can sometimes be as easy as removing your stem faceplate right here. Remove that. Sometimes the bar will say it on the bar underneath that stem faceplate. Otherwise, you remove your bar from the stem, and you can measure around that with a set of calipers. Tell you what the size is relatively easily right off of there. Next thing you're really going to be looking at is the width of the handlebars. It's going to be the next thing that most people are going to look at. Now, widths of handlebars, it's kind of the sky's the limit, man. They go up to 820 millimeter wide handlebars, and you can find some ridiculously narrow handlebars for flat bars. So the sky's the limit on what you're looking to find. Now, I will say, for the most part, bars, if you go wider, you can generally go a little bit narrower. So generally with a wider set of bars, so in the case of these were an 800 millimeter bar, you can cut them down to a certain extent. Obviously, you can only cut them down to the point where it starts to bend down, right? So you only cut them down so far. In this case, to cut them down, I believe you can cut them down to about 40 or 50 millimeters off of these bars on each side. Is pretty much what you're going to get to like as a max. So wider bars, you can always kind of cut them down a little bit. Shorter bars, obviously, it's not as easy to make something shorter, wider. And that's going to be kind of personal preference on what width you go with the handlebars. Now, older bikes like my Trek 3700 came with some narrower bars. That's how things were back in the 2010s. That's how things were. Nowadays on mountain bikes, it's kind of get the biggest bar you can. It's kind of the way people have gone towards. And it has to do with a lot with the shorter stem, wider handlebars. I've actually done a full video on that way back when, talking about the change and what kind of difference that makes. And wider handlebars and that short stem make it respond so much better on trails and off-road. So that's kind of the way things have gone. However, it really depends on your shoulder width, because I would say one of the biggest deciding factors. In general, if you have wider shoulders, wider handlebars are going to feel a little bit more comfortable for you. Narrower shoulders, narrower handlebars are going to feel a little wider for you, because you kind of want them to be, you don't want them to be like way out here, right? That's just going to feel really awkward the whole time you're riding. But you also don't want them to be like way in here, because that's going to feel really awkward too. So kind of a comfortable spot for your shoulders to sit. That's going to be the best bet for you. And for me, finding a bar width, that's kind of one of those things you just got to kind of trial and error it. For me personally, I like around a 780 millimeter wide bar. Feels really comfortable for me. However, I know people that love an 820 millimeter bar or love their skinnier bars. Personal preference. Up to you what you want to go with. One of the next measurements you'll see is going to be the rise on the handlebars. So rise on the handlebars is pretty much from where it clamps into your stem up to where the grips are. Pretty much this rise right here is what the rise on the handlebars is. And those come in anything from a zero rise, which is essentially a dead flat handlebar, up to a 50 millimeter rise, up to some crazy handlebar rises. And if you look at beach cruisers, they have a ridiculous rise on the handlebars. So you can kind of get anything between there. Really just adjust how you're sitting on the bike. That's really what that affects. And really the last measurement you'll see for a flat bar is going to be the sweep of the handlebars. And what the sweep of the handlebars is essentially how much off of where they mount in the stem, that bar come back to sweep towards you. That's going to be the sweep measurement on there. So it's going to be generally in a degree, and it's going to be, it kind of varies bar to bar. So that's going to be the other measurement you're looking at. So you can see these really don't have much of a sweep angle. First, if you look at like my bamboo handlebars on my fat bike, you can tell they have a very large sweep angle there coming back towards you, kind of for that comfort. In general, larger the sweep, the more comfortable the bar is generally going to be because it brings it towards you, so the more upright you're sitting. In general, that's how that's going to go. So those are kind of your basic measurements for a flat bar. Let's get a drop bar bike in here. Let's talk about one of those. All right, so on a drop bar, some things are the same, some things are a little bit different. So clamp diameters going to be pretty much the same. So they're pretty much going to be a 25.4 or a 31.8. There are some 35 millimeter drop bars, but they're not very common. 31.8 is probably going to be your most common size for a drop handlebar. Width, still going to have width. Widths for a drop bar are a little bit differently measured though. So widths from a drop bar can either be measured kind of hood to hood, or they can be measured from end of flare to end of flare. Depends on what you're looking at. You gotta check the website, gotta see what the manufacturer rates them at. I would say the most common is gonna be hood to hood. And with that, instead of being measured in millimeters like mountain bike bars, these are gonna be measured in centimeters. It's a pretty simple conversion if you want to do that. But one of the widest handlebars you can buy for a drop bar bike is about 53 centimeters. That's actually the bar I have on the Redwood here. The big Redshift kitchen sink handlebars, 53 centimeters all the way across hood to hood. So those are kind of one of the biggest you'll find. And then of course you'll find them ridiculously narrow as well. And same thing kind of applies for what I said with flat bars. However, there's a little bit of an extra factor to that. So width of your shoulders still going to affect your how wide of a bar you want to run. So in my case, this is actually my road bike. I actually went a little bit wider than what comes on here. So these are a 47 centimeter wide handlebar. So they're actually kind of wide in the road bike sense. But for me with wider shoulders, these feel far more comfortable than a 44 centimeter set of bars that came on here. So it still has to do with your shoulder width. However, with drop bars, and some of you commented on one of my last videos, one of my last shorts about drop bars, and it has to do a lot with aerodynamics. It's one of the big things for them. So a lot of people will run a narrow set of drop bars to get that aerodynamic position, get more aerodynamic benefits from it. So you will find some narrow set of handlebars. You will find a wider set of handlebars. Again, kind of depends on your personal preference, your shoulder width, what your goals are. In my case, comfort kind of comes supreme, right? So that's why I set it up the way I did. Now, one of the things you'll see with a drop bar that you don't normally see with a flat bar, because, well, they don't have this thing as a factor, that's going to be the flare degree. And that's going to be this pretty much right here. How much your drop flares off of your flat up on the top. So pretty much the flare. You can kind of see it comes off how my lever is kind of angled here. That's going to be the flare of the drops. Now, it's most common to see on a gravel bike that you'll see those because it gets you a little bit wider on kind of rough terrain, therefore getting you some of the benefits of a wider bar while still being a semi-narrow bar up on top of the hoods. That is going to be an important factor. Now, in general, road bike handlebars, they're going to just have 0 degree of flare. They're going to drop right down from the flats, right here. Gravel bars in general are going to have kind of the flare. So something to pay attention to when you're looking at bars there. Also, with drop bars, you're also going to have a measurement called reach, which is pretty much the distance between the center of your stem to the farthest point forward on the bars. In general, it's really around 65 to 75 millimeters is kind of standard. However, there's all sorts of options out there. So that's going to be pretty much from your stem clamp up until the top of the bar where it starts to dip down. Pretty much the farthest your bar will reach out. That's going to be the reach. And then the last measurement really is going to be the amount of drops, pretty much from the flat to the drop. How much what length that is there. Most can be pretty standard. However, you can find everything out there. So that's going to be one of your measurements for a drop bar as well. So as you can tell, there are a ton of different measurements that you should pay attention to when you're looking at bars, especially when you're looking to upgrade your handlebars. In my opinion, in my experience, I generally run what came on the bike initially. I'll run it for a while, see how I feel about it on that particular bike, because a set of bars will react and feel differently on every bike you own. For instance, these bars here on my road bike, these are from the Redwood. These are the original set of bars from the Redwood. They didn't feel quite right on the Redwood. However, on my road bike, they feel perfect. So I generally ride them right off the bat, see how they feel. And if something feels off from there, like it's not reaching out far enough, or it's not stiff enough, or the flare's not right or it just doesn't feel quite right, then I can adjust from there and kind of figure out what exactly needs to be changed to make them more comfortable for me. So hopefully that helps you understand all the different measurements there are on handlebars, because there are a lot of them, even on a flat set of bars to a drop set of bars. There are a lot of measurements they have to take into account and consider when you're looking at a set of handlebars. So hopefully you guys learned something today. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up. Appreciate the support. Any comments or questions, let me know down in the comment section below. Love talking to you guys. Love answering questions you guys have. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching today.